All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight on our Functional Life Forum for nlbp-tv. Tonight, Dr. Don is talking about the science of stillness. Thanks, Dr. Don, for moderating us tonight.
All right, welcome. Thanks for everyone for joining.
Yeah.
All right, this is a kind of a new spin on a relatively recent and an ancient topic. Yeah, I did a talk on it was entitled "Boredom: The Stillness Your Health Truly Craves or Desires," and that's where all this kind of came from. And from last week when we were talking on what to do, and we decided to do it on the science of stillness. This is really an incredibly, in my mind, an important topic because it's so absolutely necessary and not truly appreciated. It's all over the place in the form of mindfulness, but not, again, understood is how deeply we need it today. And that perhaps, and I would say definitively, it has been a part of our evolution. I like evolutionary medicine. I think a lot from an evolutionary perspective when I'm with clients, when I am integrating knowledge. I think from an evolutionary perspective, how we got here, and the why of why we're here, and why did we get here, all of that, and where does disease and dysfunction come from. So just a couple of definitions. Mindful. I want to start with mindfulness, and it's kind of the same thing. Mindfulness allows for stillness. So I want to do these two. There's a couple of different definitions in here, a couple of new phrases that I'm going to share with you guys tonight. So a basic definition, and we'll expand. Mindfulness: the quality or state of being conscious or aware of. Now, they mean it in this sense, where the statement, be mindful of your manners. When you talk to a child, be mindful of your manners, right? But the definition stands in a greater way. The quality or state of being conscious or aware of something. The second definition: a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment, while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, bodily sensations, used as a therapeutic technique. Okay. Where was the other one? One second, guys. Yeah, anyhow. Here's the other one. And this goes to a little bit more into the kind of the Buddhist component, or the spiritual aspect. If you spend any time in mindfulness circles, then you frequently heard and probably recited that mindfulness means to pay attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. Pay attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. Okay, so those are some definitions. I'm going to get to some other ones, but I want to, from here, just jump backwards. I want to jump backwards into history, into evolution, the aspect of stillness. And perhaps this is the deeper part, what people, doctors, health and wellness coaches, those dealing with energy, all those in our group and more, that we go a little bit deeper and truly bind perhaps to what mindfulness and stillness goes to. So we all understand that when we need to sleep at night, and that when we sleep, we heal, that we restore, right? So we know that that we require unconscious, this term down, rest, unconscious rest. We need to rest, and that at night when we sleep, it's unconscious and we heal, right? Mm-hmm. But have you ever considered wakeful resting? Have you ever considered that the brain and the body require, as part of a healing totality, as part of a healing holism, that conscious resting, wakeful resting is so critically important. Now that
excuse me, is that different than meditation? Or is meditation a form of it?
Right. But here's the thing. That ties into why meditation and mindfulness and these things are so beneficial. So all the research is there. I don't need to go into the research. It's spectral. You know, it's all over the place as far as the benefit of meditation, and there's different types of meditation, of course. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But so it is. But you want to go to the essence of the why. You know, I need to meditate, or meditate's good for me, or this and that. But again, my perspective is, you know, knowledge is power. But taking that knowledge and understanding where the knowledge comes from and putting it into place, putting it into action, because, you know, to meditate is an action. There's knowledge about meditating, but there's not a lot of knowledge as to the why of why you need to meditate. So this really goes to roots, right? This goes to the aspect of why meditation is so beneficial, and other practices, other practices of being, in the aspect of beingness, which we'll get into. So, so just so you understand, currently in science, this is not thought of. The aspect of wakeful resting is not. This is actually my thought. It's not truly considered yet. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you saying that so wakeful resting would also repair the body?
Yeah,
just by like kind of okay. So does the body have to go through certain sleep cycles though? I thought the body had to go through an entire sleep cycle to actually get to that repair state.
So here's this. There's two things, Camille. One is the understanding that of unconscious resting, that's sleep, and all the things that occur during that.
Right.
What no one's really thinking about, even in the scientific community, is the aspect of wakeful resting, the aspect of conscious resting, which is what a meditative practice would be, which is what mindfulness would be. You see, it changes the state of being and allowing other things to occur. You see, no one's considering. Even the scientific community, no one's considering this. So I'm opening the subject today as a deeper understanding of the why of meditating and the power of mindfulness. We're going to get into that in a bit. So you know, going back hundreds of thousands of years, Homo sapiens, going back 1 million years with proto-hominids and our ancient ancestors, earlier thought on anthropology and the ascension of humankind and the ascension of pre-humankind was that we were pretty primal, that there was you know, not much downtime, that there was we were and by the way, this is in the 1700s, 16, 17, 1800s, the thought of sentience, that even, you know, monkeys and what have you, and animals, that there's no sense of feeling. That's why they did such cruelty to animals, actually. They felt that they didn't have any sense of emotion or any sense, and they put early what was felt as humans or early humans into the same category. Even to the aspect of uncivilized, what they consider uncivilized humans, we're always in a constant state of survival, you know, struggle, to a Darwinian type of, right, struggle, survival of the fittest and all that. When in truth, what it is that our early ancestors, they estimate, only worked about 15 to 20 hours a week to survive, to do the things they need to do, 20 hours a week, 25 hours a week. That and it makes sense. The vast majority of their time, even in action of doing something or the aspect of work, was done in community, that there was an enormous amount of support, and in so doing, of course, an enormous amount of communion with nature, communion with community, time to reflect. Even if you just you were walking in nature on a hunt, walking to gather food, there was all of this time so it allows us, perhaps even forces us to consider that this time is so incredibly important to the aspect of not just healing, of growth, of expression, of when we talk about healing, as an example, you're really sick, what do? You lie down and you allow yourself, I have no energy, I'm going to allow my body to heal. But we're not considering other factors that are required in full healing or growth and expression that potentially is required, that wakeful times give us, and the body, even our genes, demand. A communion with nature, a communion with self, which I'm going to get into the two different kinds of types here of that. So I just want to, I want to set the stage for stillness. We have in modern civilization, specifically since industrial times, but even agricultural times, an idle mind is the devil's playground. Idle hands, all these phrases that rebuke stillness, rebuke not being productive. You see, that action and being in action is so vitally important to success and worth and self-worth, right? To the point that we have today that our kids, and even ourselves when we were kids, except when we got bored, we went outside. There was no other options. There wasn't a lot of options other than, figuring out something to stem the boredom, which tended to be outside or playing or doing stuff. Today, the options are anti-evolutionary, even to the great extent with video games and of course the cell phones and other things. The kids say, "I'm bored. I'm bored. I'm bored. I'm bored, Dad." Even ourselves will find ourselves we're bored, and this is the shift. This is the shift in our consciousness. This is the shift in our teaching for our children and ourselves, that boredom is an opportunity to steal stillness. And I like to use the word, I call it stealing stillness. It's opportunities that we need and really must, one, teach our children, but also teach ourselves and embrace the discipline of stealing stillness in those moments when we have available. Yes, we can create them, and yes, the discipline of them, absolutely. But there are moments in the day where we can still steal stillness and have that few minutes, and it's not a lot, right? To do, yes, meditate, but I want to break it down a little bit. I want to break it down to do these things because they're so vital. I believe so vitally important to our health, to our wellness, to our well-being.
Wouldn't you say that, like, I would think that boredom and stillness are actually different things, though?
Well, like I said, boredom is simply a belief, state, ability, a thought. You're bored. You're bored. Boredom is a definition
that
of.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I am not being entertained, right? I am not stimulated, thus I'm bored. Right, so it's a learned, modeled response that way. But I never said boredom and stillness were the same. I said boredom was the opportunity to steal stillness.
Yeah.
You see, to achieve that state, to have that state. That's why I just bored. Of course, you can create it, and of course, you can make these moments. But I just find, even as adults, where the other aspect on boredom is frenzy, that we're trying to make work for ourselves. We are trying to keep ourselves busy, and we're not valuing stillness as much as that. So that would be the other flip coin to it. So I'm just taking the aspect of boredom or slow periods. We know when we sit down and watching television is not stillness. Watching television activates mirror neurons in our brain, and the brain is actually highly active in whatever's going on in there, from an emotional aspect of activate stress of what we're watching, it's even comedy. They're watching the actors. It's not stillness, right? So even for ourselves to be aware of opportunities to have stillness.
Right.
So let me just look back. So we had our definitions. Again, just that mindfulness, getting back to mindfulness, because it pairs here. It's really kind of one and the same thing, because the state, what stillness is, allows us allows us to attain or mindfulness. All right, that's really in essence what stillness allows us to achieve. Mindfulness, right? In my definition, mind-filled, and mindfulness, a mind full of self, not a mind full of not self. And what I mean by that is, not self would be all of the things we're reacting to every day, all the things in business, all the things on the outside, not self. And these are absolutely important, from business to personal to relationships to whatever, but we are like a skipping stone. We're skipping moment to moment, but really we're skipping future moment to future moment, as we're looking to do things, right? And that's good, that's fine, that's necessary. But mindfulness is really a mind full of self. Now, let me just jump here to another thing I wrote earlier. Mindfulness, and by the way, this comes off the other definition, right? The mindfulness means to pay attention on purpose. Remember that. So here, mindfulness is paying attention to momentary beingness on purpose. Mindfulness is paying attention to momentary beingness on purpose. That is, attending to both the self and from whence the self arises. Nature and the source of all. Call it God, call it what you want, but they're two different. One manifests everything, but nature is right here with us, manifesting with us. So mindfulness is paying attention to momentary beingness on purpose. Let me just break that down. When we find our still points, when we find these opportunities of stillness, whether you want to meditate or what have you, or be mindful, and we're going to break those two down. Of course, meditation can be mindful, but let me break it down. Meditation, depending on the type of meditation, is often a dissolution of the self, where the ego is reduced, where the self is reduced, and there you are looking to achieve what many would say a oneness with all or other things. It's being in the moment. It is that. Many people find it very, very difficult to do that. That's not a talk for today. But it is an attempt at a dissolution of self, which allows for an aspect of what I'm talking about as far as wakeful resting. However, I think that a lot of meditation will not achieve that. It won't achieve that. I think meditation in that type can do other things for us, but it's a task of dissolution the self of the ego. Again, not a talk for today, and I think it has a lot more detrimental aspects to it. It can be okay, but let's look at mindfulness from the aspect of paying attention to self. And I do like that it's a common definition. Calmly, a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. This is the aspect of self. In stillness, in the moment, the switching of awareness to the self. In psychotherapeutics, somatization, where do your feelings come from? Where am I? What am I feeling? Stopping the clock, stopping the forward progression, stopping the outward projection of mind and turning it inside in the moment, mindful of self. What do I feel? What are my sensations? And this is where we go to your hand on the steering wheel. your butt in the seat right now where you are, your back up against it, your clothing upon you, your hair on your shoulder, your tension, something. This internalization and stopping and recognizing of self is, I believe, one of the vital aspects of this wakeful resting part. Why? And this, by the way, goes against some of the, this thought would go against some of the meditation of dissolution of self, you know, the aspect of empty, not having thought, what have you, not is this. We, the universe, against entropy, against the chaos, organizes itself. We organize, the baby, the life organizes seemingly against energy gradients to pull us all apart. We organize for a period of time that we're alive. And then, of course, at some point, we will start to disorganize. All right, we will die. We will diverge from this plane, and our body will separate into its constituent parts, you know, into dust, if you will, to borrow a term. And so it's really interesting if you think about it in that context, that mindfulness on self, on our what we're feeling, what we are, who we are, all of that inward moment by moment a communion of self organizes us, allows ourself to stay organized. If we don't pay attention to something, if we don't pay attention to the house, if we don't pay attention to something, it will what? It will go into disrepair. So if we do not pay attention to the self, it will go into disrepair. And we know that on a greater level. If we don't work out, if we don't pay attention to what we eat, if we don't do these things, we understand that it makes more sense on a grosser level. But I beg all of you to go deeper. In the aspect of turning consciousness, our awareness to ourself, to commune, to bring the community of the self back together, to allow for this type of healing that is really not recognized, really not appreciated, for the power of what it is. So here we go into the science of stillness is really getting into the meaning of mindfulness. And we're going from there. Any questions from the audience, from the massive audience? Anything, any thoughts? No? Okay, we're good.
Not yet. I mean, I'm following through. I used to, when I was, when I was bringing up my 3 kids, the electronics that is today, because I think people can't, I think society has gone to a place where they need stimulation all the time. Mm-hmm. But I used to give them, I used to make them, we used to call it quiet time. I used to make them go in their rooms, not sleep, and just spend an hour on their own being creative or reading or doing something. And I would separate all of the kids so they didn't play together, because I felt being alone taught them to be alone and taught them to be in their own stillness. They're all great.
You were way ahead of the curve, Camille. Way ahead of the curve. But we need to go even a little bit further, right? If they went into their rooms and the children were taught from an early age the importance of mindfulness, this aspect that they went into their rooms and they were able, and they went through and they wouldn't have to go for an hour. You know, they went through a process of understanding this, right? It's so incredibly important. But you were way ahead of the curve, ahead of the curve as far as with my kids too. I wasn't thinking this way back then, and it's so vitally important. One, to allow them. What you did was you gave them the stillness in order to do this, and in many ways, just by separating them and decreasing the external stimulation, allowed their internal stimulation to become more self-evident, right?
Yeah,
so
I wanted them to know what it felt like to be alone.
Yeah.
Not always have, you know, siblings or mom or whatever it was. I wanted them to learn to be alone, love themselves, read a book, so they never had electronics or anything at their I was a mom until they were 14.
Well, listen, and they're better for it. There's no question about it.
Hear anybody?
So,
oh, Gina just jumped on. Gina, can you hear us?
hello?
I can hear her.
Yeah, I don't know if she can hear us.
Brianna, there's no.
Gina, can you hear us?
Now I can.
Oh, you can. Okay, good.
I was rushing to get here.
We can hear you say, I can't hear anybody.
Oh no! Sorry.
It's okay. I'm glad you got on.
Yeah. Sorry. I serve on at my church. There's a lot going on. We're opening another location, and it runs into this. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. So again, just back mindfulness, paying attention to momentary beingness on purpose. So on purpose, we're attending, like attention deficit disorder, problem of attending. Now attending our beingness, the being that is Camille, the being that is Paul, the being that is Gina, the being that is David, but not just the being. The beingness is all about all the other parts, right? The sensory experiences, all of that. Now, that's of self. That's paying attention to self. What also is important, communion with self. What's also critical in this stillness aspect is what we also know from the research. What we all know is a walk in the woods, a being in nature, gardening, doing whatever. Being in nature is communion with the environment. Now, just a piece of science is that there is no difference. There's no difference between your DNA and the environment. They're one and the same. The DNA is a code of 1.5 billion years of environment that expresses, depending upon foods and molecules and movement and other things, and communion with the environment. The environment stimulates the code within the DNA. Now, so the aspect of the attending, paying attention on purpose to nature, and then of course paying attention, and this gets back into the different types of meditation, paying attention to the source of it all, whatever you like to call that source. But let's look at nature, which is the manifestation alongside of us. What if we get back to that other definition? Where was it? Where was the definition? It's up here. That mindfulness means to pay attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. And that was the end of it. To be there in non-judgment. However, I contend that getting dark in here. I look like I'm I contend that if you are in you are in a mindful state, that you are automatically in a non-judgmental state, right? That if you are mindful of self and only of self, there will be no other external, no other judgments to be made on anything else. So if you're truly in a mindful state, it's automatically a non-judgmental state. And then I think what's really vital, and I teach this to my clients, I teach this metaphysically as some of the more potent, positive, emotional productions or states is what I call TAG: thankfulness, appreciation, and gratitude. These three emotional states are critically metaphysically important. That's not for today to get into. However, if we are in a mindful state, or when we are in a mindful state, it precludes that we are already in a state of non-judgment. And then if we're in nature, for example, this is where we have appreciation that evokes from us, because we are in a closer communion with nature, that the leaf falling down, wow, it's a beautiful leaf. We're so appreciative of the leaf. We are so thankful for the tree and the oxygen it provides us. We are so grateful for what we have, for the food on our table. You see, these states of being, of TAG, achieved in the mindful state of coherence. Remember, we said before, mindfulness is on the self-reflection. So there's two aspects, just to reiterate. There's mindfulness on the self, right? Where we appreciate, thankful. It comes back, thankful, appreciative, grateful for the self, for the sense of feeling, whether it's good or bad. Just if I'm in pain, well, I'm still alive. I'm thankful. There's things ahead, that my solutions are here, my state of being, what have you, and for all of it, that I sense my buttocks on the chair, my leaning, and you enhance you are in the moment, which is enhancing your sensory aspect of self. You are disconnecting from the non-self, the events of the day, the kid, the job, the hustle, the bustle, the stresses on the outside, and we are communing with what we have, what we are. And this, like I said before, and coherence, the aspect of acting against those forces, entropy and chaos, which will eventually take us away, which will eventually unwind the telomere in the DNA, which will eventually break down every cell in our body, of course, years and years after we diverge from this plane. But we are constantly, we emerge, we organize, we are an organized aspect of universe. And I submit again that stillness is the opportunity for mindfulness, that mindfulness and paying attention to the self is part of a process that coheres and helps us to organize and can stay organized better, perhaps even down to the level of DNA. The DNA that's better organized is DNA that works better. You see, and that this only happens in conscious rest, in wakeful rest, as opposed to unconscious or sleep rest. So, and that is my original thought, or novel thought, of course, that I'm putting forward this concept. I'm just trying to catch up Gina a little bit on the concept of wakeful rest, and that's on the self-organization. The other aspect of mindfulness on nature, right? And of course, we can be mindful of others. Of course, we can extend that, because others are. I gotta turn the lights on. Hold on, guys. Others, those in our
Where'd he
lives,
go? Where'd he go?
Those in our lives are parts of nature, right? We're all manifestations of nature. Of course it goes to those in our lives, but it's I'm just staying with nature, the tree, the air, the sun, whatever, and that communion of that sort is extremely important. I'm just throwing my phone away. Sorry. Extremely important in connecting us to that which stimulates and feeds us, that which is we are partners with, that which we cannot be separated from, but we do in modern times separate from. We separate from nature in almost everything we do. And that separation goes against an evolutionary state of stillness that our ancestors, our proto-ancestors, just in how they live their lives, in communion with others, in the tribe communion, in the understanding of the extension of tribe to environment, that it was a resonance and a feeding. We understand we feed ourselves food. We understand we breathe in air. We've been taught this. We understand it. But I submit, for the things that we don't understand, the things that we do not appreciate, the things that we do not recognize, that we breathe in nature, that if we're not in communion with them, if we're not connected to that, we can't breathe it. We can't take it in. We can't get that which we need from that which we are a part of. And the more we separate from that, the more we dissolve, the more we break apart. So, yeah.
Aren't there dependencies, though?
Yeah.
Or circumstances where if we look at the community, if we look at the tribe, you're saying that we need to be part of that. Yet, if I'm in a group that is against what I believe or how I feel, that I think can do more
damage.
Yeah, damage than being part of the group. So there's still conditions on, when you talk about being with the group, it has to be the right group.
Well,
right? And is the same true with nature?
I use the word resonance, right? So in anything, if everything is energy, then we could look at everything in that aspect: coherence and dissonance. The aspect of coherent energy or non-resonant, discordant or non-concordant energy. So what you're saying is exactly that. If you're in the group that you're not resonating with, it could be deleterious. But yeah, I'm sorry, Paul, interrupted.
So I can see how that works with people because of how they work with other people. But does the same hold true for nature?
Well, give me an example.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
I would say no.
Is nature always synonymous with goodness and wholesome and truth?
Well, wholesome, goodness, and true are man-made concepts. So they have their own definitions. Your definition and other definitions. So wholesome and true. I would have to say nature is in of itself. There's no good or bad. Good and bad are defined by us, right? So there is no good or bad to nature. Just nature is. But
the same is true then with people. People are.
No. People are not are. People again. This is where when you go into stillness, the aspect of non-judgment. Being non-judgment is really important. We could do a whole little talk on non-judgment and aspect of meaning. So whatever meaning you give to people, if you give no meaning to someone, if no matter what they say or do, you don't give any meaning, they'll have no impact on you. In aspect of what from a language-based communication tonality aspect. So. So a person, a human being in and of themselves, I agree with you. A human is. But what does a human mean to you by what they say or they do is something else, and how you give that meaning.
Sure, that's all the judgment around it that I place based on my experiences and my circumstances.
Correct. Right. By the way, that's also paths out of trauma and paths out of things is that way. Yeah. But absolutely, the tribe, we all know we're with people that, that's not our tribe, or, that just doesn't work for me, so you're not deriving benefit from that. That's why and that, by the way, Paul, I would say that's a much more complex, the same principles apply because they are nature, but humans, as we are humans, we are at a stage of separation from nature, just how our society is built and how society is constructed. We have separated tremendously in reductionistic principles from nature. So we have to recognize also, where are we in our evolution? And I think some of the things you've just said exposes not the weakness in this theory, if you will, but the reality of where we are. So it's really excellent. And by the way, it really needs to be brought into mindfulness. It needs to be brought into language, communication constructs so we can become more powerful with people. But in just this conversation of self and nature or source, to derive the greatest benefit is that nature is neutral. And the same way that the food on your plate this evening was outside of you and became a part of you. Parts of it became a part of you. It was neutral until it was in you and a part of you. And so is nature. Nature is neutral. We arise from it. We are a part of it. We are not separate from it. And in essence, we could say, we could use parts of nature to do evil, and we could use aspects of nature. I could pick up a rock and kill someone. I could pick up a rock and build someone's house. So Yeah. So what, so we're always connected to nature.
Yeah. I was going to mention, just as we've evolved just in our own society, we've separated from nature. I mean, some people don't even have like lawns or trees or parks or all of that, but just our very nature, like when you think of like summer, like I'm sitting inside, I work from home, so I don't go to a job anymore. I work from home, and I'm sitting inside an air-conditioned house where, 30, 40 years ago, I would have probably went to a job, but I would have played outside or taken a walk. If I didn't have the air conditioning, or before I had air conditioning in another home, like after dinner, I would get the kids, I'd go for a walk, we'd go around the neighborhood. I remember, like as a kid, although I had air conditioning, you would leave, right? And people, especially at the shore, we would walk after dinner, we'd meet other people, we'd have more of a society or a nature, a community to us. That's what I'm thinking. A community to us, because, you sat on the stoop, or you took a walk, or you did something. Now we're home and we have the electronics and we're reading, we're, on our computers, we're on our phones, we have air conditioning. Like society has made it so easy for us that we don't have that same connection to people, or just to the outside, just to go breathe. Like I'm always like, I should really just go take a walk. I don't. I walk to the post office if I have to mail a letter, but how many letters am I mailing today? So it's like society has taken us away. Like in nice weather, I'll have a cup of coffee on my porch so I can connect and breathe. But, we just went through a heat wave and I stayed inside every day. I was like,
and ultimately, though, as Dr. Johns was saying, it's all a choice, though. You don't have to. It's a choice that we collectively, we all are making these choices to do one thing or the other.
Yeah.
And it comes down to the mindfulness. If you are mindful that, this is a priority, or this is something that you truly desire, you could.
Yeah. It's like I hike a lot just because I love being in the woods.
Yeah.
I make a conscious choice to do it and to hike different places with different people, because I think it's a great place to have conversation.
You can't be mindful. You can hike in the woods and with people, but you can't be mindful when you're in conversation.
Yeah, I understand that.
But you still derive benefit. But
yeah.
Can't you be mindful of the connection that you're making and the conversation you're having? To me, mindful, so I use the concept of an observer, my own internal observer. And I picture, I have this person, this being, this other part of me that's up here that's looking down at me. And not looking down upon me, but looking at me from up here, seeing everything that I do, seeing how I feel. And when I'm mindful, especially if I get up in upset or anger, and I just stop and say, ooh, this is upsetting me, right? I have that mindful moment of, this is how I'm reacting to something. Why am I reacting to it in this way when there are other times when similar circumstances have come up and it means nothing, right? So having that mindfulness on my inward is also something that I can do, or I think about when I'm with others, right? So there are points, I said it on Facebook, you were missed last night, but there were points last night when I was just kind of sitting there going, oh, I'm just eating here by myself and I'm with a group. I should be more interactive. I could do different things, right? So it's evaluating and doing that. Is that not part of mindfulness as well?
Absolutely. I clarify. Yes, absolutely. And the practice of mindfulness does not have to be in a specific set of time. It's good discipline, right? To steal stillness and to let me practice mindfulness. But like anything else, mindfulness is a state of being. So absolutely, Paul. And by the way, to take Paul and what you were saying about going in the woods with friends, mindfulness is an expansion of awareness as well. And so you remember the old TV tubes or anything else where the picture would come down to like a black dot, the whole, like that, right? So, so often,
I'm not that old.
almost all the time, we're going through life with our focus like this. We're focused on what we're doing. We're focused on the problem. We're focused on the pain. We're focused, right?
Yeah.
And so mindfulness, or what you're talking about, Paul, is where enhanced awareness is in the times of stillness and in the times of mindfulness, when you're somaticizing, you're saying, I'm feeling so much more. I am with myself, right? And taking it in, is that we're always experiencing that our consciousness is both conscious mind and unconscious. The biggest part of us is our unconscious state. The most powerful part of us is our unconscious state, our unconscious mind. And it's always taking information in, even if we're not attending to it. However, if we took that and started to expand it out so that we are more mindful of our sensory, of what's happening, of others, and that's of beingness, of our beingness and being with others, we start to expand that awareness out. At times we want to be focused, highly focused on what we're doing, but then we get stuck. We get stuck here. And it goes from, you know, the really important thing that we need to get done, and then it's like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And we're keeping that tight state of being. So yes, Paul, absolutely. The practice of mindfulness is the expansion of the opportunities of the experience, of the momentary experience, getting into the hot car, feeling it, feeling the heat of it, the hug that we give and we receive, being greater aware of that, and the projection of energy, the taking of energy, all of it, absolutely. And we can do this so that we go through life, where we can focus, but also at other times we're like this, that we are aware, we are mindful. And by the way, Paul, that, and to me, that is opening up the connection to nature, is opening up the connection to source, is opening up the connection to others, which are nature. And so all of that, absolutely. And this is where the practice of mindfulness creates the state of being more aware, you know, of having a higher state of mindfulness as our baseline, as opposed to having the constricted view and sense of the world coming in through our consciousness. Yeah, so I absolutely agree with you. One thing to just what you said before about going out and breathing and all of that, I just want to make a point. We're at a very interesting point in our evolution that we have separated from nature, air conditioning as an example, and that we are at a point where nature no longer drives our evolution. We control nature. Air conditioning is one of the great examples, actually, one of the great 7 inventions of all time, because it allowed us to move into areas where we couldn't survive before because of the heat and other things along those lines. So, so that we have isolated because of our control over nature. We have disconnected from nature. We have disconnected and decreased our mindfulness as a part of this period of 100 or 1,000 years of evolution. And that's why it's so critically important for us to understand where we are, to be awoken and awakened to where we are and in evolution in the present day, because we're, like you said, disconnected from others. We have all of that. And it's that much more important for us to now, what came naturally to our ancestors is unnatural to us, and we need to embrace it as a discipline. We need to move back, reconnect, which, by the way, we are. The aspect of community, it's a very interesting thesis that was put out not too long ago, that, you know, when you go out with your friends, go out for dinner, and your friends that you go out for dinner, that's not a tribe. That's not community. Community is when we're dependent upon others. Mm-hmm. for stuff. We have, because of economy and everything else, you can go and pay a farmer or pay someone for food. If you don't like the person, you go and pay somebody else. it's not like it was even 300 years ago, 200 years ago in a town where there's one doctor. If a town ostracized you, you were in trouble, right? You needed your community. If you got sick, to harvest, you see? That type of dependency bred communion, and also fed that part of us that we need fed, right? So when we talk about finding the tribe, it's really, and that's, by the way, Camille, it is one of the reasons why natural life succeeds. It's not simply the lack of competition. It's actually, we start to need each other. Mm-hmm. And that goes back to the absolute roots of what communion and community and what our very physicality, if not our soul, requires. So yeah, I just want to, so we are separating from nature, and that's never going to stop. In order for us to leave the planet, to go to the stars, to continue to spread as part of a greater plan, we need to choose and understand these other elements that we are beginning to understand their importance and vitality, but to understand the knowledge deeper as of stillness and mindfulness and waking restfulness. You say, this is the knowledge we need in order to say, hey, you know, this is so important. This is just as important as feeding myself food and my children and teaching them these things. You say, so again, the science of stillness. Ta-da!
Yay! Very good. That about wraps up our talk today. Is there any questions?
Good.
No? Yeah, it was a great discussion. I appreciate it. It was very interesting.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for attending. We got it out there in the ether. It's recorded, and we're beginning it, and we can all start spreading it, each in our own way, and thinking, yeah, and growing it. Absolutely.
Yep. And if you're listening to this broadcast for the first time, you can go back and just look up Functional Life Forum with nlbp-tv, and you will see the other episodes. We are going to take off the month of August, but we will be back in September with some new topics. So please look for that. And that's about it. Let us know if you are reading this and you'd love to know about a certain topic. You know, feel free to go on our website and send us an idea, or to write it in any of the comments wherever you're seeing this. Thank you, Dr. Don, for being here tonight and doing another great Functional Life Forum with us.
Thank you.
Oh,